All right. Well, Isaiah, last time we left off, you had just finally made it to a place of rest, a sanctuary of sorts, with your good friend, the final avatar of Ra, Amun Ra, to be exact. You were walked to the former quarters of Set, that you can only imagine to be from very early on in his life, when he was probably and indefinitely more than likely just a godling.
A young
In-
whippersnapper, you would say.
indeed, indeed. Very much so an infant in the grand lifespan that he has so far portrayed. So, inside, you were led to a very pleasant surprise of a golden Mowgli, which no one can say is a terrible thing to behold.
My beautiful bear.
Still eating a Flintstone sized amount of meat in one hand, he opens the door for you, and Amun begins to do an Irish goodbye, which is just walk away without saying a thing.
I would turn back and say, "Have a good night, Amun Ra," and I would kind of be like, not fangirl, but I'd be like, this is really cool. This is really cool. Maybe a little bit of fangirl moment. 20% fangirl.
He just kind of looks back at you, waves gently with a cordial smile. Enjoy your night, Isaiah. And the rest of the night is yours, Isaiah. Inside the former room of Set is hard to believe. The amount of mundanity when it comes to a god's quarters is alarming, or at least in this case is alarming. It's very humble. There is a simple, large framed bed with gray sheets in the far right-hand corner, an armoire right next to it, a chest at the foot of the bed with a name written in Old Jabaxi upon it. There's a desk along the left side of the wall, and a rug of a donkey without a head on the ground. If you would like to proceed to bed, you may, or if you would like to explore, you also may. The night is yours, Isaiah.
I'm gonna go to Mowgli first, and I'm gonna put a hand on his shoulder, and I'm gonna be like, Mowgli, when you were gone, what was that like?
Oh, it was hot at first, and then it was cold, and then I felt really, really hungry, and I'm so happy the meat is still here. But then I got really strong, and I think I'm a lot stronger now. And he's gonna flex real hard,
Does he look
and
a lot stronger?
you feel like you see a strangely a little bit of vascularity underneath a decent layer of fur, which is concerning. He's got like a decent shoulder vein popping.
Oh my gosh. I think in my mind, maybe like within a flash of a second, I kind of like picture what a fight would look like between Mowgli and Tangath and who would win. And not that I'm a betting man, but and these are both my boys technically, but I'm going for Winnie the Pooh every time. I'm going for Winnie the Pooh every time.
Oh,
That's
no
my
doubt, no
that's my
doubt.
golden boy. That's my golden boy. But I'm
Honestly,
gonna
no diff, no diff.
yeah, no skill diff. Sarcasm. Um, but I would press Mowgli further. I would be like, Mowgli, can you recount in detail what happened after me and Skellies fell through the void?
Oh, well, that was a long time ago, Isaiah. And he's gonna walk over to the desk and he's gonna eye up the chair for a second, and he's gonna think better of sitting in the chair, and he's gonna go over to the bed and sit on that instead because he realizes his frame is very large, and this isn't exactly a fable, so he can't exactly use that type of furniture
Yeah.
easy enough. It would probably give out. Uh, he goes over to the bed, sits on it, dust shoots up, and he coughs a whole bunch, and he just kind of like cleans the bed off from the dust with his meat and continues to eat it. And you can tell he coughs a little bit. Well, Isaiah, that was quite a few years ago. But I remember we were fighting Enolok after we got Maze out. And I remember that Spud had died. And I think I died as well. But I don't think I was alive then either. So it's hard to tell in that sense. But I remember that Spud came back because of a spooky witch in a bottle, and then it was many years of horrifying nightmares as Spud was tormented by a cabin in the woods created by the potion. And all the tormented souls of those who had drank the potion before it would continue to torment Spud in ways that were quite alien and rather devious to gain power over his body. But who am I to say? I'm just a rug, and sometimes a pelt. I do remember that me and Spud went to prison for a short time.
Did Mowgli laugh or did Ray laugh?
Yes.
Why did you guys go to prison?
Well, we weren't sentenced, but we were looking for Ro, Tangith, and their devil buddy. They had a devil buddy for a short time. He went crazy, but he was a good guy.
Wait, you guys were friends with the devil?
Uh, I think tiefling is the proper political term, Isaiah. You should check yourself next time. But,
So,
uh,
so this creature is not related to Zol in any way.
oh, no, no, no. Well, he was actually more of an antithesis to Zol, hired by another devil, because it turns out there was a devil who smelt like wine who didn't like Zol, and he wanted to work with the government to get warlocks to fight the wars for Salia against the upcoming demonic threat from the abyss to the south. But Zol blew up a whole bunch of people, killed Tink, and then Ro came back. That's what happened. And then Ro threatened me and Spud, and we squared up, and we were totally gonna kick his ass. But then he stood down. He knew better.
I hold on to the part where Mowgli mentions that Tink died, and again find myself reminiscing about what once was, and um, even though that Tink was by far the most impressionable of the group, um, still possessed a spirit that Isaiah could at least connect with on some level, because there was never really questions about who he was too deeply. Um, and never felt like he was challenged from Tink. And yeah, he's just gonna miss that. But I don't know if, yeah, I don't know if I would share that with Mowgli per se. It's just something that I'm harboring in the back of my mind, but certainly seems like a lot went on.
Mowgli gives kind of a 1,000-yard stare for a bit and stops chewing on the last bits of his meat. Then he goes back to chewing the rest of it, and he just kind of like tucks the bone away in whatever belt loop he has. And Mowgli just kind of, we we've been through a lot, Isaiah, and there's a lot you missed. But I want you to know that Spud always kept me company, and he was always good company. But I will say that I'm glad to be back with you again.
I put my hand on Mowgli's shoulder, and and I smile, thinking about Spud and his peppy personality would be a polite way of putting it, um, and say, despite my connection to Tink's spirit, I knew 100% that I trusted you were in good hands when you were with Spud. Now, I can't speak on behalf of the whole witch business, you know. It just seems like no matter how much we go through, we as in, you know, this group or what remains of it, there's still plenty more to go through. It's seemingly never ending, but you can't change the past. You can only control the moment. And look at us now, Mowgli. We're in the bedroom of a god that's waging war with another god that's been doing that for hundreds of years and has seemingly no end. And you know, it's just funny how journeys unfold, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying not to get lost in the past and trying to get locked back in the present. So to help us lock back in, why don't we just rummage through some stuff, right? And I'll kind of
Yeah.
just I'll just go over to the chest and I'll open it up.
Uh, Isaiah, roll me a history check.
I will roll a
And I'll say
history
with
check.
advantage to translate old Jabaxi.
All right, 2d20s. Here we go. And jeepers, jolly willikers. Um, I have a +0. The highest I rolled was a 9.
A 9.
The
Okay.
lowest was a 7.
You look at the name, and it's not a very high roll that's necessary. You're missing a piece of it. Part of it doesn't translate to you, but it looks like Set, at least in the old faith, was named Seth, with kind of a moniker before it, but that's what it says on this chest, carved in the back. Or I should say the front.
Interesting. I'll make a
Inside,
mental note of that.
yes. Would you like to open it?
I would like to open it. Wait. Can I make an Arcana check to see if it's enchanted or if there's a trap or if it's a mimic?
You may make an investigation or arcana check.
Both of those are very good for me, so I'll just do investigation instead. That is wow, a natural 2 for a 6.
I'll tell you what. You're checking to see if it's a mimic. How do you check to see if it's a mimic?
Um, what do I know about mimics? Can I make
Well,
a
you
history
actually
check?
ran into one, believe it or not.
Yeah.
A long time ago, once upon a time in Udi Massis's house, underneath in his basement was a chest that he used to dispose of many different things.
Isaiah has
As
another "That's So Raven" moment as he just remembers the trauma of that basement.
and you know that placing a hand or any object that's deemed a threat or possibly edible on a mimic would typically make it stick. So, Isaiah, what do you do to mimic test this thing?
I look over to Mowgli and I grab the food out of his hand.
Oh no! You need to make a contested athletics check right now.
I will. I will. Fuck!
I'll say do it with advantage because he's not expecting it.
Damn, these are some bad rolls at the start. Okay, my highest is a 10 total.
Okay, no, he got a 15.
Yeah.
He is the no, Isaiah, I died. You can't take this from me. That's all I have.
I just need a little bit, Mowgli. Stop being selfish.
Let me finish the meat. And then the marrow. I'm gonna break it open and suck out the marrow.
Can
It's
I
the
make
best part.
Can I make a sleight of hand check to see if I can rip off just a piece of the meat?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll sleight of hand.
Oh, really good. 18 for a 17.
Okay, yeah, you're gonna pull off a sliver for sure.
Okay. I'm gonna take the sliver and I'm just gonna set it on top of the chest.
You set it on the chest.
Yeah.
It clunks onto a wooden chest.
It doesn't move. It doesn't growl. It doesn't.
It doesn't move. Nope.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna pick up the piece of meat. I'm gonna look at Mowgli and I'm gonna say, Mowgli, say ah.
He looks at you with some ferocious side eye. And he turns away for a while, and then he looks back, but he closes his eyes and he goes, "Ah!"
Okay.
In a good old Totoro-looking wide-mouth style, "Ah!" Which is just unhinged jaw.
Okay. What check do I have to make to see if I can throw it into his mouth?
Roll it and don't roll below a 10.
All right. A 10 flat.
Oh my god, okay, yeah. You make it.
I go over to him and I scratch his ears and I say, "I'm sorry I acted like that. I just didn't want to get my hand bit by the chest."
You see a slight tear that he's pushing back in his eye. It's okay. I wasn't about to break a promise or anything. Or ruin a friendship.
Oh man. I don't press any further. And I just go over to the chest and I open it.
His faith has wavered. But yes, you go over to the chest, you open it. The first thing you notice immediately is a large donkey mask.
Is it? It's not. Does it look like it was a part of the rug at one point, or is it something completely different?
It actually does. It looks like it was part of the rug. It looks like it's been modified in a magical way to possibly operate as like a more arcana tech helmet in its own self. But other than that, you aren't able to discern just by looking at it to know what its actual purpose was, other than like the general sense is that it was a project.
Can I make an Arcana check to discern what properties this mask may have without attuning to it?
You may.
All right. That's gonna be a natural 12 for a 16.
Natural 12 for a 16. Isaiah, as you pick up this mask, it is filled with divine power. And since you do have an emblem of Set upon the Khopesh itself, and you carry a piece of his magic with you as all you go, you are able to discern that if you were to take this mask, don it yourself, you would be able to cast Disguise Self as long as the mask is on you.
Interesting.
It
I will.
works in the same way as a hat of disguise.
Okay. Okay. This is good to know. I will put this in my knapsack, my satchel, and I will pocket this. I will pocket this. You never know when this will come in handy, especially for
No.
Mowgli.
Oh, you never know. You
Hard
might
to
be able to get
disguise
them.
them. Yeah. Um, is there anything else in the chest?
There is a number of things. As you start digging inside, Isaiah, you do find a number of tunics, robes. The chest seems to be a little bit larger than it's actually leading itself to be believably, and you find inside a number of basically training weapons, a glaive or so here and there, a large hammer as well. And you find something that's surprising, but slightly embarrassing in another way, is childhood drawings from Set. There are rather rudimentary drawings of depicting Set flying the Ark with Ra, and you can tell that he's different in this day and age because he's depicted wearing the head of a donkey. There are other ones of him just in his regular jackal form itself, which you can assume that, maybe this was the day and age before he had the donkey mask, or he just donned it for a short phase, like a teenager.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of, honestly, to see him in this light, it's semi heartbreaking to see someone grounded in this kind of way who has performed such vile acts. He's shown depicting flying the chariot of Ra over an unknown land, which you assume to be the land that Jabaxi came from, with Ra, Osiris, Geb, and Newt. There are a number of entries of journal logs where Set talks about his time in Salia and Jabaxi itself, and how he was excited to bring new races and other Salians into Jabaxi once he was essentially the head of the Pantheon. There are very intricate plans as you can tell he gets older to make peace with different gods of Salia that you've never heard of, and some of them that you have heard of, and how that Set was very eager and excited to welcome the presence of Ati into Jabaxi if he would seek mysteries here as well. And that working with him and Thoth, it would be very advantageous, as there are some mysteries in Jabaxi since they came to this land previously and essentially took land that was not previously theirs. There are mysteries such as the illusory desert that the gods don't do anything other than hold some dominion over, but do not quite understand themselves. There are annals of Set and his wife meeting for the first time, Nephris, and the birth of their son, Unal. And this is the part where I would tell you, Isaiah, to give me a religion check.
All right, religion check. Here we go. +0. Love it. That is a natural 16.
Natural 16. Isaiah, you are aware of one god going by that name, but the relationship to Set was not something that was previously exposed to you before, or at least known to you. And it doesn't seem like that was the original idea that is told to the Jabaxi public. The name Unal is another name for Sobek. And based off of this entry here, that's the only thing that you have to go on, and you don't necessarily know if there would be any lies to it. Sobek is the son of Set, but he's supposed to be the son of Osiris.
What do you mean by supposed to be? Like, is this a weird adoption, kidnapping sort of situation, or what?
It's more so taught that uh, Sobek is the direct blood relative to Osiris. And if it ever did come to that point before Horus was born, Sobek was supposed to essentially be the head of the hierarchy of gods once Osiris essentially gave up the mantle. But things obviously didn't go that way, and the murder of Osiris proceeded. And shortly afterwards, the birth of Horus also proceeded. So this is essentially, if you choose to believe it, a hidden history that Jabaxi does not teach.
Um, I think I don't know if I would. I don't know if I would take the journal entries, but I would record the key points of the journal entries in a papyrus scroll of sorts and put that in the satchel. And I think I would take the pictures as well. And can I just review if there's anything in these journal entries that pertain to either Astaroth or Aedlir?
You do get a few entries on Aedlir, but nothing on Astaroth.
Okay.
There are basically entries of Set coming across the knowledge during his journey with the sun across Salia, Eastvelgen, and Vari with Ra during the time when they don't have to drag the sun, where they learn about the gods in Salia. And it's essentially from his point of view that he finds them to be fascinating, but also concerning in how indirect they work. Although, when it comes to Aelir, he finds to be somewhat disturbed over the fact that Aedlir appears to be so infatuated with regular mundanities of life. The nature of Aedlir is that he constantly sleeps, and that's what keeps the dead at bay. And if he does awaken, very powerful undead are unable to rest. Dead sometimes doesn't hold for even the strongest of beings, and Aedlir typically just tends to live a rather mundane, unknown life somewhere out there in the world, uh, not awaiting his followers to come and murder him, but his followers eventually track him down and find him, kill him in his mortal shell, and bring him back to divinity, resting him in sleep once again. Uh, it is a concerning thing to Set, but he does find it interesting in the sense that it's rather unique compared to any god he's ever met.
Okay. Is there anything in here that kind of describes what him and Horus's relationship is at this time?
There is no journals upon him and Horus in this area. There are journal entries of him growing frustrated with his brother, and towards the end of the entries, there's no dates in the early ones or the middle ones, but you can tell that there is the beginning of the dates of the third kingdom, which is the one that you know is the one that Osiris had ruled over very shortly. And Set is growing frustrated, and his journal entries become more sparse. He records far little more down, and he becomes a little more bitter towards Osiris and towards Ra as well. He speaks about his wife betraying him, speaking behind his back, and sharing information with Osiris, and how he wants to speak sense into his brother. And then he speaks about the rumors of Ra picking Osiris to be the next monarch. And after that, Set essentially stops his journal entries.
So, just to clarify, Set alludes to his brother but does not mention Horus by name.
No, there's no mentioning of Horus.
Okay. Just for the shits and gigs, is there anything on Amun Ra?
Roll me a investigation check.
That is going to be a natural 2 for a 6.
There are journal entries of Set when he's younger speaking about how cool Amun is and how he thinks if all mortals are like this, it's no wonder that Ra has so many avatars out there in the world and that he cannot wait to have any of his own. But other than that, there are some entries about him learning some things from Amun Ra, or Amun to be specific. He doesn't refer to them as the same person. There is a strange bitterness when it comes to him referring to Ra down the line. Almost like he's upset with the level of distrust that Ra has in his ability. He feels like he's insulted when Ra gives him instruction on basically the travels of the, well, sun itself, the Ark of Ra. Speaking about how Set was barely alive during the time when him and Apep were working together as sun and moon, and how he was born in the age where they disagree and are constantly at war with one another. He considers himself to be a far better, we'll say, channeler of the Ark than Ra himself.
Okay. Um.
That his skill is wasted on essentially the Ark,
Oh,
is
okay.
what you get the idea.
Wasted potential. In that case, then last one. Is there anything? Oh no, I got two more. I lied. Is there anything on Neath or Thoth?
There is. There are regular, I would say, it's fun to think of a god coming to a new world and thinking about conspiracy theories, running them by the god of knowledge, and thinking of what he thinks about them when it comes to essentially the Feywild, which you have the idea that the old world of Jabaxi didn't have a Feywild in some certain way. Uh, the depiction and understanding of devils is different from the original demons of Jabaxi. And there's one entry of Thoth speaking of a spider queen that he once knew. And Set, having information upon this person, was willing to make a trade with Thoth for the information he knew upon Neith. And you would know that Set was born around the time that the old world still existed, but not for much longer, so that there is a chance that he had met Neith. But Thoth had not during his lifetime.
Interesting. Okay.
There are also talks about Thoth having precognition, and basically just kind of gushing about how cool it is that, from Set's perspective, that he could actually do that. Oh.
Okay. Then in that.
You'll
Oh, go ahead.
you'll look over, and Mowgli has climbed under the bed and found a rabbit.
A living one?
Yeah, it seems to be nibbling on basically a piece of the bed.
Can
And
I make
Mowgli
an
didn't want to say anything, but he's just kind of like, oh,
Can I make an insight check to decipher if this rabbit is a powerful ancient god that's just taken this form?
yeah, you may.
Natural 9 for a 14.
Isaiah, you are fairly sure that this rabbit is an eldritch being from a world unknown. So it's a regular rabbit.
Hmm.
And their virility will be known by all creatures.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. Um, Mowgli, what's the rabbit doing? And what are you doing with it?
Isaiah, there's a nest under here.
Okay,
Or
well,
maybe a den.
we'll put it back. It's none of our business. We're just spending the night here. Maybe Amun-Ra likes having rabbits around.
He's very defensive suddenly, and oh, I'll put it back. I'll put it back. And you can tell that he just kind of like lowers it in his palm, but it's just kind of like chewing on some wood. So, it's a brown fur rabbit, uh, moderately floppy ears, not too floppy. It's a wild rabbit. It's not genetically made to look stupid
Yeah, yeah.
or adorable.
I look at Mowgli, and I, as a peace offering, I will say, Mowgli, you may give it 3 pets before you return it to its den.
Oh. You see him put it on the bed, and he'll give it one forward proper pet that like kind of like flattens it against the mattress. Then he'll give it a backwards pet, and then he'll give it a forward pet again to fix its hair at the end. Then the rabbit just kind of starts chewing a little bit, and then it thumps on the ground. I don't know if you've ever seen a rabbit thump, but they just kind of like slap their leg really hard on the I suppose on the mattress at this point in time.
Yeah.
So it just kind of goes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and then it just kind of like hops over to the edge of the bed, hops off, and then goes back under the bed.
Awesome.
Mowgli starts looking under the bed again.
Okay, then in that case, I will go over to the desk and I will investigate the desk.
Isaiah, you go over to the desk. Give me an investigation check.
Natural 13 for an 18.
18.
I lied.
Very good roll. Oh,
17. 17.
it's still pretty darn good. Still good. No, it's shit. It's a terrible roll. You find nothing.
It's a
If you rolled
desk.
an 18, you could have won. You could have won the whole campaign.
Yep.
Damn. Uh, this is a probably the only thing that has remained in constant use in this room. You don't necessarily know who it is. You haven't spent any time here, but you can assume that maybe it's Amun. There seems to be maps, regularly updated maps over the years, placed inside of the main drawer of this desk, the very large middle drawer. It seems like it doesn't match the bed frame or the chest, so it definitely seems like it was added at the end. Uh, Amun Ra seems to have been mapping out what he can of the material realm of Salia, Jabaxi, and parts of Eastvilgen, as that has proven to be the most difficult part to actually map itself. And you know from your own experience in Eastvilgen that when it comes to war-torn worlds like that, where there's very little government and such, borders change all the time. So having any type of map of itself could be very useful. You also see that there are basically legend points, markings on the map depicting where Horus and Set's battle took place in their divine forms. And on the near complete eastern side of Eastvilgen seems to be the parts where mountain ranges were leveled. An intense plateau was basically driven below sea level, basically made into Louisiana, and there's basically a watery basin that stretches for about 100 miles.
Once you said Louisiana, I just really started to contemplate the toll this war has taken.
Yeah, I know. Like, you go there, it rains, suddenly your house is gone. And then you're like, fuck!
Yep, GG, you had a good run.
Fuck!
You
Why do
got.
people live here?
Yep, yep, yep. Does anything in the desk or among these drawings and scripts, is there anything that tells the origin of the shimmering wall between Romy's Hill and Eastfolgen?
I'm happy you asked that. Roll me a history check with advantage.
Oh! With advantage, that's how you know the DM's ready to jizz out some lore. I mean, tell me some history. Oh, Ray, you are in fucking luck. That is a natural 19 for 19.
Oh my god.
Pull out the document.
Isaiah.
Put it on
Isaiah.
the table.
You motherfucker.
I dap you up.
Motherfucker. You motherfucker. We predator handshake. Dylan! They got you pushing pencils. Oh, god. That was a very specific thing that Thoth and Set basically wondered when they first came to the world. And Ra was giving them the lowdown about where to go, where you can't go, how to transverse. The ancient age of the Tendo ended about 100 years before Jabaxi made its roots here in Salia. The great Tendo were mortals that were basically comparable to the gods themselves, being the first mortal to ever take the place of deity. Tausen, the Lost Father, dying in a sacrificial means for an orphan child he did not know, taking fired arrows from his own troops, speaking to strike down any coward that would run from the battle, no matter the reason. Basically got a taste of his own medicine when a child wandered out onto the battlefield, and in a realization of the heartbreak of his own orders and his misunderstanding of power, he threw down his own weapons and tried to run the child to safety. And his soldiers, unfortunately being loyal and true to their word, shot 3 holy arrows into his back, striking him down. With tears in their eyes, they would win the battle but lose their great leader. Odd, the dwarven god, took great pity upon the sacrifice that Towson had made, making him into the first lesser mortal god to ever exist. The Tendo would go on ages later to find a form of peace, and due to unknown events, would call down serpents from the moon to separate worlds of Salia from each other. The reason was never found out why or how these serpents were bent to kneel and basically act as these borders, but it's stated that they slumber for all of eternity and will bring slumber to all of those who trespass them. And you know this firsthand, Isaiah, when you traveled through them, and the only people that could stay awake were you and Ro, 2 individuals completely immune to sleep. From there, you were able to see that the influence of these serpents, while not actively being alive themselves, were being basically influenced by the manifestation of children, in quotations. These children would essentially prey upon bodies of explorers that would come into the walls, who managed to survive and find their ways to the edge and corners of the world. Those who could not barter were basically fodder and means of bargaining for other adventurers, as they had exorbitant amounts of wealth, magical items, and powerful individuals that are essentially going to slowly wither away over the years of degradation, if not being eaten by the children of these serpents themselves. These entries are written from a strictly, you could say, uh, I wouldn't say scholarly standpoint, but a point of nonchalance from Set. That he doesn't have kind of a moral understanding of how gruesome this is anymore, but he does consider the serpents to be a decent amount of a threat that he could never transverse them without the arc itself. So without an avatar, he would not be able to find within himself to actually make the journey to another world, even if he ever could leave Jabaxi.
Interesting.
And you get the idea that this is not full-blown evil Set yet, so he wasn't anything more than, as he calls himself, the god of foreigners and the future king of the gods. But you have the idea that maybe Set would change his mind
At some
in
point.
this modern day.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Um, Now, is there anything in the notes that alludes to where the boundary lines of these sleeping serpents are, or how one would theoretically interact with these sleeping serpents, if that's even possible, um, or if Set even if he alludes to any type of plan on how he would theoretically act on these supposed threats in the future?
There is a number of rumors that him and Thoth have found there's talk about a serpent in Eastfilgen that has some free reign. He's allowed to essentially stretch the scales, have you, because he's the favorite of, and this word itself is not in Jabaxi, not old Jabaxi, as all of this is written, but celestial. The name is Mythos. The serpent in Eastfilgen is the favorite of Mythos. And Set speaks about this being known as Mythos as an individual that should not be allowed to have a favorite from the distinction of their point of office, essentially. He doesn't speak much upon them, but he doesn't speak upon them with very high esteem. More so respect than esteem.
Um, so what was the group of high-powered mortals that you were talking about earlier?
The ancient Tendo were mortals that considered themselves to be on the level of gods themselves. Something had happened to them that caused them to basically go extinct in terms of their civilizations. There are speakings upon ancient civilizations both under the sea and still in the skies of Salia to this day.
What is Mythos considered one of a member of these Tendo or a completely separate entity?
Isaiah, you have heard the name Mythos before, fairly recently from Ra himself,
I thought I did.
and you
I can't.
recall that Mythos was the name that Ra said Neith had made the deal with to bring Jabaxi to Salia. It does give you the idea that Mythos is a very high power or deity, or possibly even a creator in this world.
Okay. 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 Is there anything else of note at this desk?
I would say that there's not anything that catches your eye immediately.
Okay. With that, I would probably take a long rest. Well, I would figure out Mowgli's sleeping situation.
You see
Uh,
Mowgli laying on the bed, or not laying on the bed, laying at the foot of the bed by the chest, staring underneath, and he's slowly beginning to flatten out into a golden shaped rug, but it's not as fast as it could be.
is he on top of the donkey pelt then?
Somewhat, yeah.
I would take the donkey pelt and I would roll it up and I would make sure that the ground is all nice for just him and just
Okay.
him alone, so he's not on top of this donkey pelt. I don't know how he feels about you know be you know he's a little too young for pelt to pelt action. I think I would say.
In his life, it's hard to tell, he's gone through so much, but at the same time he could be both ancient and a newborn. So it's very much so up in the air, especially with his personality. But you get the idea that when you remove the donkey pelt itself, he's able to deflate a little bit faster, but it does sound like a little bit like a balloon. But you get the idea that it's because he's a far more buffed individual that's why he's deflating so slowly.
There's a lot more air in this air mattress than the last one.
There is. There is.
Um, okay, well then with that, uh, I would blow out the metaphorical or potentially literal candles and or the lantern and I would take my rest in Set's bed. Is Set's bed? Actually, I don't want to get got. Is Set's bed? Does it have Arcana in it? I'm gonna see if there's. Is the pillows enchanted? Am I gonna have a nightmare? Am I gonna take it to another dimension? I'm just trying to get you on the ropes right now, Ray.
Isaiah, you go to the bed. It's no longer dusty because of Mowgli, so you have that to be thankful for.
Yeah,
But looking at it, seems to be rather mundane. High quality, old,
yeah,
mundane.
yeah,
Looks like someone used to come in here, prestidigitate it a little bit. Hasn't done so in a long time. There's no housekeepers here, it
yeah.
would appear.
Okay, I'm trusting you on this one. I'm gonna take my long rest.
You take your long rest, Isaiah. I'm going to ask you this. Where do your thoughts go while you take your rest?
I think about the vast amounts of knowledge that I've taken in within this short period of time. Not only with these important conversations with Amu and Ra, which are certainly stressful, albeit important, but also just within this very small room itself. This room seemingly barren and boring, but contains a peek behind the curtain of one of if not the greatest prevailing threat to Jabaxi as we know it. And so part of me is grateful to have the opportunity to know thy enemy. Part of me is saddened by how real they are. It's easy to, when you attach the word God next to any entity, um, obviously that comes with some baggage, and that baggage can take you off the ground, to say the least. So, seeing pictures, writings, thoughts, manifestations of his visions, I guess, through these drawings, has brought this terrorist back to ground level to an extent. It does not necessarily make me compassionate or empathetic, but on some level, I take pity that his story has played out like this thus far. Um, so that's something that's really been hanging on my mind in the more serious, literal sense. I'm also there's so many thoughts to think about that because I'm taking all that information as well. I'm also thinking about what tomorrow is, and tomorrow is potentially me getting back to Pharaoh's and me confronting, my people, something that I have not done for many years, and I've been on this journey, and granted, this journey has had sidewinds, detours, ups, downs, uh, other gods, Mowgli's, and other stuff, other such things that are distractions. But it is one of those things where it's like it's been this long, and I'm finally now making it to this place that still gives me pause because even though I know and believe I am on the path to doing the right thing, my people still may not receive it as such and still may overlook the recent past for the in favor of the past further back. I guess is the best way to put it. And so yeah, it's pity. It's to some extent anxiety. It's uh, somewhat isolating. Um, it's interesting that being dead and being in that unique situation. Um, your experience is isolating to that extent, but because you don't necessarily get the luxury of feeling much, it doesn't feel real. But at this present time, it's like, you know, I wish I had some of the crew around. Maybe, yeah. It's good having Mowgli around, but it's weird. It's just Mowgli. No disrespect to Mowgli, but um, I
He's
just
reliable, but he's got limits.
yeah, he's got limits. Even someone like and I'm thinking back to her and where she's at and how fast how swathing ever swathing this journey is, um, and how someone like Hatanzi was just kind of a pit stop. It was in the way that there was a real connection, but because of this path that I'm on, it's just I get swept up in everything else, and the isolation is now it's realer. Even something as annoying as a short but cognitive conversation with Enelok could be, you know, of value. Not that I don't appreciate. Um, I just want someone to be able to reliably come back to, but I recognize that is not. That's not a luxury that I can afford at the moment. There's other pressing stuff to get to. So, lots of emotions, lots of inner rumblings at this moment as I fall away into the void that is my slumber.
Your night goes uneventful, Isaiah. You wake up. Mowgli's in rug mode still. There are no windows in this keep that you are in, but you have the feeling that the sun is coming up rather soon. However, you are in the spirit realm, and that would dictate that your departure would be happening rather sooner rather than later. Although you're not exactly positive on how that works either. Because it almost seems like Ra would be the one in charge of dictating when the sun goes up, but you do get the idea that he keeps schedule.
Yeah, I'm not the one to question on the literal man in charge of the sun and keeping away darkness on the logistics of how he keeps the sun rising and setting. Um, there's just certain things that aren't my business. I don't want to pry too much. Um, I will get up. I will get dressed. I will gather my things, my belongings. Um, I'll spend a couple of minutes petting the Mowgli pelt before uh, summoning it to champion Mowgli.
Okay. Uh, Isaiah, I will say this. Give me a DC 10 investigation check.
So do I
Or
add?
insight if you wish.
Oh, DC 10. I thought you were saying like a D10. I'm like, what?
No, 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 no.
Okay, DC 10. Insight or investigation?
Yep,
All right. It's gonna be a 13 total.
13. Isaiah, you look around. You don't have a lot of belongings. You notice something's missing. And you realize that it's been missing for a little bit. Enelok. Your skull.
When I was waxing poetic to you, Raymond, and I mentioned the analog skull, I realized that I did not check for analog recently. And I'm like, oh, maybe I lost him and that was part of the journey, but I didn't confirm and I was kind of scared too. So now, Raymond, where is my rear view mirror decoration?
A, with a 13, you remember the last time you had an luck was right before the confrontation in the captain's quarters on the Ark. You, before opening the door, you checked everything you had, you made sure everything was fastened properly, and that was the last time you remember seeing it or making note of it.
All right.
And you have the idea that maybe the explosion from your smite that could have sent it flying. It's debatable.
Yeah. Yeah. Damn. All right. I will. I will walk out of the quarters that I am residing in, and who will? I'll go back up to the main deck. And
Isaiah, as you walk out, the place that you have landed isn't the ark itself any longer. It's a stronghold of some kind. The ark itself was being dissipated away once you guys made port, essentially. But you are assailed with, which is essentially just about like 20 rabbits or so just hanging out in the hallway. There's a bunch of pellety poop on the ground as well.
gross.
And they're just kind of like, on occasion they're thumping, they're jumping around, and for those who are dirty out there, yes, they are humping to rhyme.
Raymond, you don't have to pander to the audience. Actually, up the horny list.
Good. It's about time.
Um,
They are rabbits.
yeah, I get it. Yeah, it was bound to
It
happen.
is. It is nature.
Yep. Um, is there any people that were quote unquote sailors of the vessel nearby?
Well, Isaiah, you go and wander a little bit down the hall. Uh, Besides the alarming amount of rabbits that are about, completely unregulated. This is ridiculous. It's getting to be a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
You eventually find yourself in what is essentially a large foyer, and you see down from your balcony up above on a staircase. You appear to be on a third floor. Down on the ground floor itself is a old woman trying to her best, just trying her best to grab a specific rabbit that's well determined to avoid her as much as he possibly can.
Can I surmise like what the hell's going on at the stronghold? Because this can't be any ordinary stronghold. There's nothing really strong
Oh no
or
no no
holding
no
about this many rabbits here.
no! Anything with this amount of rabbits is very much so questionable at best. Uh, this like if this is the place where Ra goes to, you know, make port, there's got to be something special about it.
Yeah.
It's very isolated so far, and it's very much so mundane, but it does house what you know to be the quarters of Set back when he was young. Uh, you have no idea where Amun is itself, but he did say that be wary if you find the light, as to not find the true form of Ra itself. And if I didn't say that last session, that's what he meant to say, because finding the true form of a god is a sure way to get obliterated.
Murdered.
But
Um,
so far, no light to be seen, other than this old lady trying to wrangle one specific rabbit.
I will proceed down to the first floor.
Okay. You'll
And
proceed down to the first floor.
with. Do I see the rabbit that she's trying to chase?
You see, which is a beautiful dark brown rabbit with 3 white spots on top of his head. He seems to have rather very formidable upper body for a rabbit. His chest, shoulders, and traps are rather large. He is very clearly the Chad rabbit of the rabbits, and he is essentially avoiding this older woman who has green skin, rather fey like visage, and she seems to be just kind of like wobbling towards him. And this rabbit will perform the most badass and athletic acrobatic feats to like flip over rabbits, fling them in her direction, and basically make her look like a fool as he can.
Um,
As you approach the old woman and the rabbit clocks you and stands up on his hind feet, squaring up.
can I tell if this is an ancient celestial god inside of a rabbit?
Well, what kind of check do you want to roll for me? You want to
Insight.
roll insight? Okay, you
Insight.
can roll insight.
All right. That is a natural 19 for a 24 ray, be honest.
There is clearly something wrong with this rabbit. He has a huge ego. You can very much so tell that just by the way he's handling the situation. Uh, he doesn't seem to be a god. He's very much so fey. He might be a worthy opponent.
Interesting. How far away is he from me?
I'll say that he's got pretty good perception. So he clocked you around 60 feet or so, long before this old woman catches sight of you. And if you try to get any closer, he essentially starts ducking into the pile of other rabbits. That they're not coating the entire ground, but they do take up enough spaces on the ground to create their own herds, in which you can't necessarily see him, but you see the pile of rabbits going up as he travels beneath them.
Okay. Um.
The old woman just kind of swears in a language frustratingly, and she looks over in your direction and she says, Amun, it's about time you made it here. I need to capture him. He swallowed something he shouldn't have.
Can I assess myself to see if I'm Amun Ra?
Uh, you are very much so not Amun Ra. You have the idea that she
Is it slightly
took one
delusional?
quick look at you and just assumed.
Okay. Okay. Um. Then in that case, I will. Yeah, I'm going to try to get this rabbit good. And wherever. I'm going to cast the front edge of this cube on it. And this
Oh,
cube is going to be the spell Hypnotic Pattern. And I'm casting that at 3rd level.
oh shit. Okay, okay.
And I'm going to make this Hypnotic Pattern uh, look like a wave of golden bunny rabbits just
Okay, I like that.
flowing forward and going to seemingly overwhelm every rabbit at the end of this hallway beyond this woman because I don't want the spell to affect this woman. And each and every rabbit, including the targeted rabbit, has to make a wisdom save of 15.
Yeah. I'm gonna roll for a horde, and then I'm gonna roll for him separately.
Okay.
because I'm not rolling 50 saves.
Coward! No, I'm kidding.
I know, fake DM. Put in the work, you
Not
know.
real, not real. You heard it your audience. No, I'm kidding.
Uh, what is the save I have to roll?
15.
15 wisdom.
Wisdom.
I will have you know that the moment you cast this spell, the old woman cackles with delight. Yes, and she is very gleeful at getting one up on her rival. It seems. And this rabbit is going to roll with advantage because he does have magical resistance. That is a natural 1 and a 16 on the die.
You bitch!
So, oh, I'll roll for the horde as well because that could actually assist you. That's a 12 on the die, and they're not going to be very wise, I assume, so it's probably going to be a negative to their wisdom. So, a whole horde of rabbits is essentially uh, charmed for the time being. Uh, you see them stare at other blonde, golden rabbits, and they are stunned. They cannot believe or fathom that such a beast could exist. And it's essentially wah, 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 a
Yes.
standoff.
Yeah, they're incapacitated and they can literally cannot move. So from here, I will take the dash action and catch this fucking rabbit.
Okay, you're gonna have to roll me initiative.
How dare you!
Because as you cast this uh, hypnotic pattern, the big rabbit, he stands up from the crowd. He grows about maybe 4 inches or so, standing up fully on his hind legs. He looks at you, shakes his head, and he wiggles his finger back and forth, going, "No, no, no." He pulls out a carrot out of nowhere, and then he pulls on the green stem of the carrot, revealing the carrot to be a sheathed short sword, and he arms himself with it.
I've I'm taking this conflict more personally than any battle I think I've ever taken before.
Oh, oh, he thinks he's better than you.
Also, is
100%.
Mowgli with me?
Mowgli, I will say, came with you in this situation.
Okay. All right.
Uh, he's gonna jump off the top rope to join you in initiative. The rabbit rolled a 19 on the die for a 23 initiative.
I rolled a natural 20 on my
Oh my
initiative for a
god.
19.
Damn. You have a negative, damn it. Oh. Alright. We'll cut it off there. That is where we will pick up next time.
Okay. Good. Good. Oh man. Got my blood pumping for this fucking rabbit. I'm gonna beat
Yeah,
the fuck out of it.
it's a fucking rabbit too. I love it. I love it. He is such an asshole too. I
It's
can't wait.
beautiful. It's man.
As the old lady screams out, "More!"
That's beautiful. Man. Good informative episode. It's almost like an interlude episode.
Yes.
It's like I can't guarantee the storm is going to happen the next episode or in the next episode, but I would like to imagine this is like the pause before the storm. I'm sure this is, this is the BBG, this fucking rabbit right here. This is what we're all building up to is the
Yep.
great villain. Oh, if this dude took Analog, that would be not awesome. I'd be upset about that. But good episode. I don't think there's really much to recap because all I did was spend a lot of time just investigating a bedroom. So there wasn't like any shocking decisions for me to make or any necessarily twist for you to throw in my way. I mean, yeah, there was not like you can't really throw a plot twist in here. It was just I was sitting and listening as you got onto your bard shit and waxed poetic on what's going on with Set and his world. But
Y-
really good session. pretty good
Yeah,
session.
you got a little insight on what Set was like, or ideally what he could have been like had he maybe accepted the way things were.
Yeah. Yep. Um, let's see. What's he? Did I have any questions? I'm trying to think. I can't necessarily think of too many right now. Uh, how long did you have this relationship figured out with Set and all the other gods? Because I thought I had you by naming some oldies but goodies, but you were ready. I was kind of upset that you were ready. Um, I thought I had you on the ropes for a bit, but you were strapped for the lore dump for Set and his relationships with the Salian gods in particular.
I had not all the Salian stuff planned out necessarily, but I had a decent amount of the Jabaxi gods set up just in case all of you motherfuckers dove into the Duat on top of Romy's Hill.
Oh,
In
interesting.
which case, I was gonna have all of them take horrible amounts of poison damage, and you were essentially going to be the babysitter because you would take none.
Yeah, yep. And we would all still be trapped with Analog. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when you said I found journal entries with the other gods, I was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna get them." So I grabbed my notebook and I went through the archives, you could say, and I'm like, "What are these dudes' names?" I'm like, "That's right, Astroth and Adlir," and I'm like, "I got this guy on the fucking ropes. Let me ask him." Um, and so on that front, that was fun to get, to see what Astroth and Adlir were like. Only because Adlir is funny, just because I said his name as a troll, and then it turned out to be
Yeah,
the butterfly wing off in the distance that may lead to the apocalypse. Who knows? Um,
possible for you to do that. Yes.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That and asking the question about the shimmering wall. Not it's not always about throwing, making the choice that throws the DM off or surprises yourself because you didn't see you it came to you in a moment of as like an epiphany. But sometimes asking like a really good question gives a good dopamine hit. So I'm proud that I got the shimmering wall stuff because that seemed pretty prevalent in regards to what Ra, Amun Ra, and Set and Thoth were kind of dealing with on their early adventures pre Evil Set, pre Old World. Um, so that was pretty cool. Um,
Yeah. The idea of the shimmering wall at first was just to originally come up with an idea of like a mysterious border for the world to like dictate like, no one's ever been there, so no one would necessarily know what's there. And rarely ever do commoners ever like travel to the edges of worlds. Like to actually go to the top of Romy's Hill as a commoner, it would have to be a miracle in general.
yeah,
And those who do make it, like I thought the idea of like keeping Ethelgen and Vari just in the world was not as fun as separating them with some type of primordial thing that would make it exclusive, because I was writing my original lore for like, oh, the wars that happened beforehand, what was that like, and why is it the rest of the world is not, interacting with each other here?
yeah,
And the idea of Eastfilgen is being the perfect place for someone to hide is has always been the case, just due to the singer and the lack of divination magic that works there. And Vari is essentially kind of more so a paradise compared to Salia and other places, mostly because it's very much so small bodies of water and islands. So people have to rely upon trade even just to coexist, even
interesting.
in a world of magic.
So you didn't just watch the movie Annihilation and think I just want that shit?
No, that was definitely the idea of the visual for it, but
Okay.
no, that wasn't the original motivation for it. But it was definitely the motivation for the like, the word shimmering wall because I'm like, oh, that wall looks sick as hell in Annihilation. Like no one can disagree with that. It's just like, oh man, I could just watch that shit for hours, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would turn into Theo Vaughn if I stared at that for long enough.
Gosh. I feel like as a man, we all struggle with at any given point. We may turn into Theo Vaughn, but
Yeah.
um, that's just everyone's personal struggle. I did have a question about the donkey mask. I was wondering if that was a homebrew in terms of its lore, or if that was a if there is a relationship with Set and donkeys canonically in Egyptian lore. Seeing how much of that was you versus what is known.
It was completely just a reference to Set being depicted with the head of an ass, as depicted in mythology sometimes. Doing my little research into Egyptian kingdoms and their ages that they had different depictions of the gods themselves, and obviously the ass is one of them. In Egyptian mythology, Set is also the god of foreigners and basically the rest of the world as compared to Egypt. So I was like, what would Set essentially be before he was evil? And that was my idea, is that he was the god of foreigners, and he essentially helped Ra with foreign affairs and just, making friends with the world that they had come to inhabit. So if anyone did know Set, that had lived long enough and had recollection, like eldritch beings or other divine beings or fae possibly, they might not remember Set as an evil being, and they might not remember him as a jackal. They might remember him as a donkey, as he would have donned that mask and taken many forms when he traveled in the material realm before him and Horus made it a big no-no for all the gods of Jabaxi to ever manifest physically in Salia ever again. Because unlike the Salian gods, if they wanted to manifest in Salia, they could.
But they don't want to because they're like, fuck it.
They don't want to anymore because after they maimed each other and made damn fools of themselves in Eastvilgen, they got in big trouble, and the powers that be basically slapped them, and that's why they can't leave Jabaxi anymore. So you won't see you leaving Jabaxi was very controversial for the Angel Eyes for that specific reason, is that they have that knowledge. Being ancient scribes that live on the astral plane infinitely, they can't age out there, and they have constant resources, just kind of like monitoring things. But they have limits to the things that they can do, and they don't like to get their hands dirty themselves.
Fascinating. You need to one day, not tomorrow, not next week, but maybe next year, you should make a PowerPoint presentation that visually encapsulates all this lore that you say. Because I'd like to visualize the things that you do. Like, I want a map of the world, diagrams of like these gods went over here, and then this happened, and then have you ever seen the video of like the history of the world and it's like done in
Oh
20
yeah.
minutes? I want
Oh,
like
that dude's
your
crazy.
version of history of the world, but it's just history of Salia, and you're like, Jabaxi gods came to be. They went over here. They broke everything. They got their ass sent back home.
Yep. To be fair, for a long time, things were great. They were great for a long time. And then Set's like, you know what?
Fuck
I
it, we
think I
go.
do want to be king.
Oh man.
And then he did a bad thing to Osiris, and then Osiris was like, fuck, man, that shit hurted. And then
I
Horus is like, hey, Set, did you hear what he said? He said that shit hurted. And then Set said, I don't even know who the fuck you are.
now we have to fight for a little bit.
Yeah.
Now I'm pissed.
And they basically said, square up. So they went to Eastville again because barely anything's there. And they're like, all right, let's do it. And it was literally, you know, a kaiju fight at millions of miles per hour
Oh man, tough
with
luck.
magic. Yeah. Yeah.
Tough luck.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in that case, I will wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for listening. Like, share, subscribe. I don't know. Whatever. Don't. It's
Do what you want.
yeah, it's unlisted, so it doesn't even really matter. So, anyways, all right, everyone, have a good one. Goodbye.
Bye.